This is Channel Space Traveler, where forgotten Star Wars history comes to light. When we talk about powerful characters in the Star Wars universe, names like Darth Sidious, Anakin Skywalker, and Yoda always come up. But today, I want to spotlight a character who's often overlooked, someone who had the raw power, the presence, and the potential to reshape galactic history. Savage Opress. In my opinion, one of the most underrated characters in the entire Star Wars universe is Savage Opress, the fearsome Knight brother we met in the Clone Wars. Now, I know what many of you are probably thinking. Savage was always in the shadow of Asajj Ventress and Darth Maul. And sure, at first glance, it may seem like he was just another disposable villain. But let's actually look at his story objectively. When Savage Opress was first introduced, he was nothing more than a powerful brute, a Zabrak warrior infused with dark magic by Mother Talzin, leader of the Night Sisters. Unlike Ventress and Maul, who had years of rigorous Force training, Savage was a complete newcomer. He had no formal lightsaber instruction, no mastery of the Force, and barely understood his own abilities. When Asajj Ventress turned against Count Dooku, she had already spent years training under Mother Talzin, a literal force which is one of the most powerful mystical beings in the galaxy. Similarly, Darth Maul was raised by Darth Sidious himself, the master manipulator and arguably the most powerful Sith in galactic history. And yet, despite all of that, when Savage Opress first picked up a lightsaber, when he was barely learning to channel the Force, he nearly choked both Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress in the same moment. Let that sink in. He was brand new to the dark side, and he almost overpowered two elite Force users on instinct alone. Later, he used the Force to throw Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker across the battlefield like ragdolls. These weren't just any Jedi. They were some of the strongest Jedi of the Clone Wars era. Savage Opress, even with minimal training, achieved what many seasoned Sith couldn't. Together with his brother, Darth Maul, he conquered Mandalore and united parts of the Outer Rim under a new criminal empire. And remember, the Mandalorians are some of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They went toe-to-toe with Jedi in ancient wars, and without the Force, Savage helped subjugate them with raw power and sheer will. Then came his final battle. Darth Sidious, the puppet master behind the Republic, the Jedi's ultimate enemy, personally came to eliminate Savage and Maul. This wasn't just any Sith duel. It was a test. Savage faced Darth Sidious when he was still in the early stages of his Force and lightsaber training. Let me say that again. Savage Opress, practically a novice by Sith standards, held his own against the most powerful Sith in modern galactic history. Yes, he ultimately fell, but the fact that he was even able to stand his ground for a moment proves how terrifying his potential really was. To put this in context, in Revenge of the Sith, Sidious wipes out 3 Jedi Council members in mere seconds. Only Mace Windu and Yoda were able to truly challenge him. Yet Savage Opress, still green in his training, fought Sidious longer than those 3 combined. If you still think Savage was just a side character, think again. And this brings us to the ultimate question. What if Savage had remained with Count Dooku as his apprentice? What if he had continued to hone his Force powers and refine his lightsaber skills under the careful watch of a true Sith strategist? He may not have just changed the balance of power. He might have rewritten the history of the galaxy itself. Let's dive deeper into the what if. Because the potential turning point wasn't just in Savage's raw power or early victories. The true divergence could have happened at the start of Episode 3. Think about it. Count Dooku didn't choose Savage Opress at random. He wasn't just looking for muscle. He was preparing for something greater. A betrayal of his own master, Darth Sidious. Now, imagine this. By the time of Episode 3, Savage Opress has had years of lightsaber training, deep immersion in the dark side, and mastery of the Force under Count Dooku. He's no longer a blunt weapon, he's a perfected Sith warrior. When the showdown aboard the Invisible Hand takes place, where we originally saw Anakin defeat Count Dooku, the outcome is radically different. Picture this alternate battle. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Darth Sidious all present, facing off not just against Dooku, but Savage Opress as well. That changes everything. With Savage at Dooku's side, the balance tips hard. Anakin might never get the chance to strike Dooku down. Obi-Wan might not walk away from that battle. Even Darth Sidious, for all his power, would be facing 2 fully trained Sith Lords, one of whom is a berserker with force strength to rival the Chosen One himself. In this timeline, Darth Sidious falls. The Emperor never rises. The Jedi are caught between collapsing loyalty to the Republic and rising fear of Dooku's growing shadow empire. And that's just the beginning. With Sidious dead, Dooku emerges as the new head of the Sith, but not as a tyrant, like his master once planned. Remember, Count Dooku was an idealist at heart. He didn't want an empire of fear. He wanted order through reform. Under Dooku's rule, the war might have ended with the surrender of the Republic, not its destruction. He would place Nute Gunray, the Viceroy of the Galactic Trade Federation, in power as a puppet ruler. Just like plagueis before him, Dooku would pull the strings from the shadows. But what about Savage Opress? This is where it gets fascinating. Savage, empowered by years of training and elevated to the position of Dooku's apprentice, begins to see that he's outgrown his master. He's stronger, more feared, more capable. He understands what Darth Sidious once taught Dooku. There can only be two. And so the cycle continues. Savage turns on Darth Tyrannus, just as Tyrannus had once planned to turn on his own master. And in this timeline, Savage Opress becomes the ruler of the galaxy, not as a tool, not as a second-string villain, but as the true Dark Lord of the Sith, with both political power and unmatched force strength. A new Sith order rises, not through manipulation like Sidious, not through idealism like Dooku, but through domination. Savage Opress, once the overlooked brute in the Clone Wars, becomes the most powerful being in the galaxy. Savage Opress may not be the most celebrated name in the Star Wars universe, but perhaps he should be. In a galaxy dominated by ancient lineages, prophetic destinies, and chosen heroes, Savage was something different. He wasn't born to greatness, he was forged into it. A pawn turned warrior, a brute who nearly became a king. He challenged Jedi masters, stood his ground against the greatest Sith Lord of his era, and helped build an empire alongside his brother, all within the short span of his existence as a Force wielder. And yet, history remembers him only as a shadow to Darth Maul. But maybe that's the tragedy of Savage Opress. Not that he was too weak, but that he rose too quickly. Had fate dealt him a different hand? Had he remained under Count Dooku's tutelage, or lived long enough to refine his power, the galaxy might have bowed to a very different Dark Lord. If this made you question what you thought you knew about Star Wars, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment.